is up, everybody? Welcome to The Stack. I'm Alex.
I'm Justin.
I'm Pete.
And on The Stack, we talk about a bunch of books that have come out this week, and we are going to be doing one of your requests. We've been asking people to leave a rating and comment on iTunes with requests for older books, and this week we've got one of those requests. This is from Indy77 on iTunes, asked for Marvel Knights Marvel Boy by Grant Morrison and J.G. Jones. So we're going to be talking about that at the end of the podcast. If you'd like to request something, absolutely anything, old OGN trade collection thing we missed, whatever it is, leave it in the iTunes comments there. But first, we're going to get to a bunch of new books, kicking off with Ghost Rider number 1 from Marvel, written by Benjamin Percy, art by Cory Smith. Now, I believe this is the 17th Ghost Rider number 1 that's debuted in the past year, so that's pretty exciting.
It's about time this guy got a shot.
Hey, come on. This Ghost Rider.
I'm being glib. I'm being mean. There's been a lot of them, but this one does have Benjamin Percy, who is great and definitely on a roll here. And there's a pretty good concept to kick it off, which is one of the Ghost Riders, I'm not going to bother to figure out which one, has been trapped seemingly in a suburban. I don't know. They're all the same. They're on motorcycles or whatever.
Come on, dude. They're not. There's different people. All right.
Somebody else introduced this thing. Go ahead, Pete. If you love Ghost Rider so much, you want to kiss him right on his.
This guy's name is Johnny Blaze, which is very different than the other ones who are named Bobby Zoom, Danny Fast, and
Danny Wheels.
Yeah, it's weird that they named two of them Danny, but it's cool. Anyway, Johnny Blaze he's in a suburban nightmare. Something happened to him. He got into a motorcycle accident. He's being told that is the reason he is picturing some demons and things going on. But of course, that's not actually what's going on. He's trapped in hell. Spoiler there, but you can figure it out from the beginning. I'll tell you what, really like the structure here. Almost felt like a Tom King book, and I say that as a compliment. I almost wish, frankly, they had dragged it out a little bit more.
Wow.
Rather than getting to it at the end here, which
I'm
is
surprised to hear
kind of a crazy comment from me.
Yeah, this is the opposite of where I'm coming at it for sure.
Well, how'd you feel about it, Pete? Because you're a big Ghost Rider fan.
I am. Maybe the only one on this podcast. I've read a ton of Ghostbusters.
We know all the names of the Ghost Riders, okay?
We just send them.
Yeah. Anyways.
The one that rode the bicycle who was slower.
There was the skateboard Ghost Rider. He was pretty scary.
The guy who was on the Segway briefly who slowly dispensed vengeance and justice. In the mid
and Bitcoin. He also dispensed Bitcoin.
He was into NFTs. He would have his chain whip was mostly.
Wow, this is so topical and fun. Did you want to work on any other stand-up material while you're? No,
I'm good. I've got my 5. I do 5 minutes on Ghost Rider.
Type 5 on NFTs. This guy's so topical. He's got his finger on the pulse.
This is great.
So I feel like this comic does a fun kind of setup of like explaining maybe where this Ghost Rider has been and what he's been going through. But it's nice to finally get him on the bike, back being Ghost Rider and fucking doing the Ghost Rider things. So I'm the only one paying attention to the comic we're talking about. But
it's good stuff.
Alex, don't, Alex, don't. Just let's move past it. Let's just move past it, man.
I like this book a lot. We really, in a lot of other books, they would have used this sort of premise to be like a short little bit. Instead, we get the whole issue where Johnny Blaze is really struggling. Great time in therapy. Alex's head is bursting into flames right now.
For some reason, I thought maybe after you were really going to get into things and kind of threaten or make some big proclamations, but I guess no, you're just going to do a regular. Okay, great.
I did it for a second, but Alex was already broken, so I couldn't continue.
I'm good. I'm doing great.
I do feel like they dragged it out a little bit, but I'm excited to see where this is going. Amazing art, really cool Ghost Rider kind of art on this.
Aquaman number 1 from DC Comics, written by Chuck Brown and Brandon Thomas, art by Sami Basri. This is teaming up the two Aquamen. We have the former Aqualad, now promoted to Aquaman, teaming up with the regular...
When did you guys get promoted from lad to man?
For those of you listening on the audio podcast and not necessarily
Which is
watching,
everyone. We're recording this in a Zoom.
Yeah. Well, maybe this video goes up on YouTube, guys, and that's important. Justin took off his belt, and now Pete was minding taking off his belt, and really threw me for a loop.
Fun
so
times.
That's all. Anyway, this is teaming up the two Aquamans to solve a new mystery. Orm has attacked the United Nations. They are fighting on two fronts. Meanwhile, Black Manta has his own things going on, spinning out of the Black Manta series. This is another one that I'm like, I feel like there's a new Aquaman series every 2 months, but this is good. I had a very fun time reading this. What did you guys think?
I agree. This was really fun. I really love the art as well. I feel like it has a real kind of classic superhero feel to the art. I'm very excited about where our Black Manta as a character is going. I think they're doing some fun stuff in this book. I'm very excited to see where it's going to go.
There's so much psychological drama going on here, especially for like an issue 1 where the classic Arthur Aquaman and our new Aquaman are you good? I'm good. Are you good? There's like Black Manta dad issues going on. So there's so much psychology at play that I feel like it's surprising for a number 1 to come in so hard on that. But I thought the action was good, and I like sort of the underlying plot of anyone with Atlantean genetics is a basic ticking time bomb on land.
Cool stuff. Next up, Step by Bloody Step, number 1 from Image Comics, written by Si Spurrier, art by Matias Bergara. This is a pretty much silent issue as a young kid is raised by a giant robot-looking thing. There's some action, there's some twists, there's some turns. Pete, I read this book and I thought this must be right in your wheelhouse. Was I correct?
Yes. I mean, this is beautiful. This, to me, is just great karmic art and unbelievable.
Karmic.
The art leading the comic, you don't need words. You don't need all the fucking bullshit of what happened before. Enjoy where this is and what's happening and kind of figure it out. Put things together. You don't need somebody, you know what I mean? Like, telling you what they're saying or what's going on. It's all on the page, and this is beautifully explored in this book, and I think such a cool artistic way. I loved it from start to finish.
Si Spurrier comes at comics from like a whole different mindset, and just beautiful just opening shot of this giant hand opening on our main character. From there on, it was just like a good wordless story where we follow into this like darker, more like fantasy world that we don't know exactly what the rules are of yet.
Great stuff. Definitely pick it up. Next up, all new Firefly number 1 from Boom Studios, written by David M. Booher, art by Jordi Pérez. Now, we had David on the show, I think, last week to talk about Rain from Image Comics. This didn't even come up. That's our bad.
We really missed
missed the boat, but this is
huge opportunity.
Rebooting the Firefly series with a new direction after Greg Pak has been doing such a great job for so long. What did you think about this new direction?
Well, first, I recommend you going back and listening to the episode where we completely blew it. You know, it's got to be enjoyable now to listen to us like chatting on about something else instead of maybe what we should have been talking about.
No, I think we should have been talking about what we were talking about, but this is just would have been an interesting sort of second beat of the conversation.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I wish we'd been able to just like take our belts off and relax, you know, during the interview.
Sometimes you just got to take your belt off and just maybe threaten somebody with it a little bit, but then just say, no, what do you look? I wasn't doing anything.
Now, Pete, you've been loving the Greg Pak stuff, and that's been sort of dealing with the characters sort of outside of the ship, or we've saw a lot of flashback issues. This is very much in sort of the current, quote unquote, current continuity. With Kalia piloting the ship. Yeah.
Different takes on it, but I'm definitely enjoying this. Art style is great. I like what this is setting up. Very creative. Seems a lot of fun and interesting.
I love the focus on Jane. Seems very interesting.
Yeah.
Carnage Forever, #1 from Marvel, written by Phillip Kennedy Johnson, art by Edgar Salazar. This is a story of the Carnage symbiote, which has been essentially freed from Cletus Cassidy, I believe, at this point, though still very tied to Cletus Cassidy's memories and experiences.
Yeah. Still goes by Cletus.
Yes, corrupting a young girl who is near the orphanage that he grew up in. There's some horrific twists and turns and some setups for the future here. Phillip Kennedy Johnson, bad, good at horror, does a good job at it.
I just want to say this book is amazing, really cool, but the Carnage take on Family Circle in the backup? Oh, yeah. Wow. Just
it's so funny you say that.
Just like, coming at Family Circle, dude. Oh, I loved it. It was
Family Circus, I think you mean, but I was going to say the exact same thing. One of my favorite parts of the issue.
The Cletus, the legit menace. Oh, come on. I mean, just taking on Dennis the Menace, old school newspaper style. I think this is so creative and fun. But the book itself, unbelievable art, fantastic action, really kind of creepy use of Carnage and a kid, which always scares the fuck out of me every time a kid is involved.
You should have children.
That seems scary enough in comics. I don't need to experience that for myself.
Well, they say it's a great training to read comic book stories about kids, and then you'll fully prepared to have children.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's all it takes. A couple of comics, and then you're ready for kids on your own.
Yeah, 100%.
Go ahead.
Real quick, I just thought this. I agree with you. The twists and turns of the opening story is by Phillip Kennedy Johnson is so good. It catches you off guard sort of at each turn in a really great way.
Task Force Z, #5 from DC Comics, written by Matthew Rosenberg.
Bergie.
Art by Eddy, Barrows, and Eber Ferreira with Matt Santorelli and Jack Herbert. This book is following a bunch of zombie villains who are led by Jason Todd. In this issue, they go up against a bunch of other zombie villains. Pete, you love this one. Talk about it.
Yeah, I think this is just really over-the-top fun. Just crazy, awesome, intense art and action. It's just a solid fucking comic. You know, Task Force Z, you're like, okay, this is going to be zombies, and then they just turn it to 11, so great.
They threw a lot of characters at the wall here, and they are of similar mask design, and they all hate each other.
I am enjoying this book, but I want more people to die. You know, like I feel like
wow.
Well, there's zombies, and they can die and be brought back. And granted, a major plot of this particular issue is how they're sort of losing the ability to bring these folks back. But I don't know. I feel like if you're going to do Task Force Z, should be Task Force X, aka Suicide Squad, without that hamper of like, well, we can't really kill them because then we permanently kill them. And they're getting there. It's very fun, but I want to see it more so. I just want to see it to be like a bloodbath.
You can't just have fun along the way, man.
No.
He wants murder, death. The stakes are only good when they're high.
This is a real.
The star of this book is Bloom, which is a character created by Scott Snyder in sort of his middle of his run on Batman.
My God, yeah.
And what a great issue for that character. Would be very curious to see sort of what the future, like a real new Batman canon villain that we don't see that very often.
What are you doing, Pete?
I'm just why Justin's talking. He's like looking at himself flexing in the fucking thing. So I was just trying to see.
I was stretching.
Just like, oh, look at the fucking tries on this guy. Oh my God.
Hey, if you want to admire my arms, please do so. Send me an email.
Speaking of huge things, Supermassive One Shot, Image Comics, written by Kyle Higgins, Ryan Parrott, and Matt Groom, art by Francesco Manna, with assistance from Melania Palladino, with Simone Ragazzoni and Marcelo Costa, Abel and Erica D'urso. This issue is expanding dramatically the Radiant Black universe. Now we talked to Cherish Chen, who's writing the Radiant Red series that is spinning off of this. And this not only spins off of Radiant Black, but also promises a much bigger universe with a bunch of spin-offs there. What did you think about this one-shot?
I thought it was great. Like, we talked on the live show with Cherish, who's doing Radiant Red. Like, this book is we've said it from the beginning. It's so much better than it needs to be or has any right to be, and it is really just good. Great grounded characters that feel real, exist in the real world, and they're fighting in like Power Rangers type battles. Like, it's just fun, rooted in some real storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, I feel really bad about that deer in the first couple of panels, but I think this is a really cool crossover event. It's very intense, over the top, a lot of action. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of kind of like a Voltron or a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers type of thing. But, man, just really well done. The whole Radiant Black world has been really cool, and they're doing a good job kind of exploring it a little bit more here with this.
Berserker number 7 from Boom Studios, written by Keanu Reeves and Matt Kint, art by Ron Garney. In this issue, our main character is finding out, as usual, a lot more about his past, but also a way of accessing what's going on with his past and potentially his future. This series continues to be so good, so bloody, so violent, and this real star here is Ron Garney's art, which is impeccable as usual.
But I agree with you, but I also like sort of the way the story is pushing through all of that just like regular violence and really getting into this idea of, if you are immortal, what are you actually doing to the world? And the conversation between Berserker and the other guy in this issue is about, like, you actually brought technology to all these different parts of the world because you were alive long enough to travel it there. Like, you've seen so much, you've brought language to different places. Like, and I love that sort of like larger brain thinking of what the ramifications of this premise would be.
Yeah, I think it continues to be like a super badass story, but it's also fun to kind of like get Keanu Reeves' voice in it a little bit.
And it sounds just like Keanu.
It does. In my head, for sure it does. He reads all the lines, but I just think this is continues to push this character in cool and different ways. And it's impressive because we've seen it in different hands with different celebrities kind of behind it. And right now they're really crushing it.
Yeah.
The
Sandra Bullock Berserker was less effective, I thought.
Yes. Oh, don't take shots at Sandra.
Oh, I'm just saying, like, from the Lake House Expanded Universe, like, I feel like that was just less successful.
Come to the lake house.
Do they say that in the trailer, or what are you talking about?
Yeah, from the movie.
You going to challenge Pete on a rom-com?
Yeah,
you know he's got that on lock, kid.
The Human Target, number 5 from DC Comics, written by Tom King and art by Greg Smallwood. In this issue, Ice and Human Target, who have recently become intimate, sit down with Martian Manhunter to find out exactly what's going on in terms of the plot that led to the eventual death of Human Target. This issue is awesome.
It's a perfect comic.
Oh my
God. It's a perfect comic.
I'm surprised to see you guys, like, it took a really long time to pass the salt. I mean, the whole issue, it's just, you're barely getting that salt passed. So I'm surprised you guys like it so much. It was driving me nuts. Like,
I love a slow
fucking
salt.
pass the salt already. You know what I mean? Like,
I love a slow salt.
The construct of this issue is we get Martian Manhunter sitting down to dinner with Ice and Human Target, and at the same time, Martian Manhunter, as he does, psychically attacks Human Target and tries to find out what he knows. But over the course of it, as he is plugging through his memories, and as we, the reader, are jumping through his memories, we also find out how the Human Target trained back in the day to resist psychic attacks, and part of that is getting into the memories of the person who is attacking him, which means he is able to find out a clue to further this mystery from Martian Manhunter. So it's jumping back and forth between them. And the construct with the salt, which is so simple but so fucking smart, is it's a chess piece. He's moving the salt on this checkered table, and as he moves it, you're like, oh, he's doing chess moves the entire time. It's brilliant. Like you said, perfect issue. Was completely blown away by this.
The revelation that we get about Martian Manhunter here is so cool and so smart. I love it.
Great. All right. Why don't we move on?
Pete loved it too.
No, it's fine. I read this issue and I was like, Pete hated this issue. Why don't we move on? Rockstar
so
and Softboy number 1 from Image Comics by Cena Grace. This is a story of two very ridiculous characters getting together and fighting a bunch of stuff in very ridiculous ways. What did you guys think of this one?
Yeah, good.
I was just going to say, this is just over-the-top fun. A lot of very creative characters here. A lot of fun with the arts and the paneling and stuff like that. And, I mean, it's fun to see the kind of, like, clash of these two characters and great use of stuffed animals.
I feel like Cena's really carving out this area in the comic book world of telling sort of these real world stories in super heightened ways. You drawing on like what feels like lived experience for him and making it just super fun, super superhero-y with great jokes throughout. And I think that's an area of comics I wish we saw more of.
Yeah. Great.
It's good stuff. Why don't we move on and talk about House of Slaughter number 5. This is from Boom Studios. It's written by James Tynion IV and Tate Brombel. Art is by Chris Sheehan. In this issue, we're finally getting the showdown that was promised from the beginning between, I'm forgetting the name of the characters, but the dude who has joined the House of Slaughter who wants to kill everybody in the House of Slaughter and his boyfriend. We also get some big revelations here in terms of what's been going on in the background and what he's been doing in the quote-unquote present day. This series continues to be absolutely fantastic, absolutely romantic, and I love what it's doing to flesh out the world.
And also something I didn't think I would say again, but great use of stuffed animals as well in this comic. But yeah, it just really kind of like such a cool way to kind of come at this. It's not just the person being like, hey, fuck you. There's also love involved and all these different things. So it's really interesting to see how this is all going to play out. Love the art, love the action. This is just continues to be a great exploration of this world and these ideas and some really cool character studies for sure.
I mean, I agree.
Detective Comics number 1054 from DC Comics, written by Mariko Tamaki and Matthew Rosenberg, art by Max Raynor and Fernando Blanco. In this issue, we're finally getting the thing that was promised at the beginning of this arc. Everything is starting to fall down in Arkham Tower as Dr. Ware is drawn thin. Psycho Pirate's hold is broken by Nightwing, of course, and everybody starts to go absolutely nuts. Meanwhile, in the backup, our kid, who's just ended up on the wrong side of the
come
law.
on, like,
It's trouble.
Yeah, I mean, it's stressful, man. But in this issue, Batman sends his third Robin, Tim Drake, and we do get, I think, confirmation that we're kind of going forward through time here. This is a decades or years spanning thing or whatever the actual continuity.
He's grown up, our poor suffering kid.
In front of our very eyes. He's just, some bad things are happening to him there. Both of these stories are so good. I can't believe it. Every issue. It's great.
Yeah, I agree. Really loving how like we're kind of getting the kind of prison thing falling apart and kind of like the fallout of what's going to happen with that. Very excited about the buildup of that. But the heartbreaking thing is this, this kid, whether he's going to be good or bad, and growing up in Gotham and having all these insane villains as influences, like how it affects the kid. And then we have like, I don't know which Batman it is. It's like 80s disco Batman makes some horrible choices with this kid here. And it's just like, why would he do this? And like Robin's clearly talking with him, trying to help. And then like Batman steps in as a complete disco douche.
Well, just on that, less disco and more Azrael when he took over for Batman after Bane broke the bat is the era that we're in. And so, yeah, of course, he's way more extreme. And our guy, just hitting his teen years, really pays a price here.
Yeah,
And
it's
I gotta say,
fucking
Pete,
heartbreaking. The horrible choices are being made in front of this kid, and I just, I don't. This kid's not going to turn out good.
I feel like you're sort of a father to this child.
Well, I'm worried about him, so maybe, but like, I just don't know why Batman would think that would be a cool thing to do or a good thing to do.
He's a bad Batman. That's the whole point. Azrael is an insane Batman that ultimately drives Bruce Wayne to push himself harder, get past his broken back, and become Batman again. That's the whole plot.
And that's how healing works for everyone.
And just in between that, this, just going to fuck up this kid. That's the cool.
Haven't you read this whole era of Batman?
You're a physical
a while ago.
You're a physical therapist, though, Pete. You know if somebody breaks their back, you bring in a worse version of them to be like, whoa, that guy shouldn't be hanging out with my wife and kids.
Yeah, I broke my leg and Pete sent in some asshole into my home to be me for several weeks.
Wow.
The front story, though, I feel like this has been such a great, meticulous...
I just want to say, though, Justin, the asshole who showed up did love your brother. You know what I mean? Like, really respected your brother.
Spoiler, it was Pete. It was Pete who was the asshole. I just want to say the front story, the main story, it's such a meticulous breakdown of showing this thing that seemed like such a shining, like, good thing. Ridiculous at first, felt like it was a shining good thing. And then the way it's degraded in these last couple issues, really good, really smart.
Bolero #2 from Image Comics, written by Wyatt Kennedy, art by Luana Vecchio. In the last issue, this woman who was absolutely heartbroken after breaking up with her significant other, potentially years earlier, but just didn't get over it, got a multiple second chance thanks to some sort of weird cat god thing who offered to jump her into alternate universe versions of herself. I'll tell you what, I was very surprised by the direction of this issue. I expected at the end of the last issue, I don't remember the exact number, but it's something like 52 universes that you could jump into. So I was like, okay, so we're going to get 52 issues of this. Great. That's not what happens at all. It jumps through a good chunk of them in this issue alone, and there are a wild amount of ideas on play here. I was very impressed with everything that goes on, and also the art continues to be gorgeous, in my opinion. What did you guys think?
I mean, I agree with you. I really like this. I liked the aggressiveness with which the story sort of moving through the narrative, and the way it's like the echoes of what a relationship can do to you, and we see sort of her trying to deal with it and doing whatever she can to try to get it back.
Pete, you don't like it because there's nudity, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can't read it on the train. There's a lot of different...
Where are you on the train?
What train are you on?
Yeah, when are you going on trains?
I'm on adorable little trolleys here in Philadelphia.
You're on Thomas the Tank Engine. You giving Tommy a ride?
So don't fucking question my trainability here. But I just, there are certain comics that are in people's wheelhouses and other things that get weird sexually with cats and stuff, and I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? But hey, if you're into it, great. And explore things, make yourself happy.
Sometimes you look at that butthole and you're like,
what the fuck did you just say out loud?
The Killer Affairs of the State #1 from Archaia, art by Bats. Written by Bats, art by Lucas Giacomon.
I really hope your kids never listen to this.
I mean, they're never going to. What did
they will. Once we're dead and gone, they're going to look back and be like, "Dad loved cats' buttholes."
Oh,
it's too much to comb
Daddy, I'm going to listen to thousands of hours of comic book podcasts to get to know him.
This is our long audio gravestone.
I'll tell you what, it's been more positive than negative. That's my main thing.
100%.
So they'll forgive me a rare insinuation that you're looking in a weird way at your cat's butthole. That's all I'm saying.
They'll forgive you.
I'm worried about what they're thinking about you.
No, I don't have a cat. You have a cat.
Exactly. I don't have a cat either, Pete.
You're the one looking at the cat's butthole, Pete.
Oh, my God.
All the time. All the time.
Oh, my God.
Wow, you can't hear this on the podcast, but he just licked his lips.
Brother, play the episode where Dad laughed when the other guy took his belt off, and then he talked about the butthole.
That's how I want to remember our poor papa.
I can't believe you guys are in charge of
Hey,
people.
what'd you think about The Killer, Affairs of the State, #1?
Yeah, it's good.
Oh, Pete's changed.
Great. Why don't we move on then and talk about Action Comics number 1000?
Wow.
What? Oh, do you have anything to say about this one?
No, I mean, I thought this book was cool. It's like very verbose. Really getting into like a lot of
Great art.
great art, and like it's like a very austere book. Like I'm curious what we're getting into.
Well, why don't we move on to Action Comics 1040 then, from DC Comics, written by Philip Kennedy Johnson, Sean Aldridge, art by Riccardo Federici and Andrea Mello. In the front story, Superman is continuing his fight against Warworld with some big twists going on here. And in the backstory, we get Martian Manhunter doing some cute stuff with a cat.
Oh, yeah, I wish we weren't talking about the stuff we were before, but yeah, the power of the cat stuff is really fun. And
If you could
that
create
cat has a
cage,
butthole.
Oh, why, Justin?
a mile
Why?
wide.
Why?
If you could create a cage in your tummy, Pete, where you could carry around your cat all day, would you do that?
Well, I mean, Krang Styles is, that's where Krang would have his
Krang Styles.
Yeah,
His
that's
brain.
where his brain is in his stomach there. So, yeah.
Let me ask you this, Pete. If you could have a cage in your stomach where one end was the food for the cat to eat and the other end was the litter for the cat to eat, would you do that? So it was a perfect
That sounds
universe.
like a horrible design.
It's a perfect universe. Then the cats
you could be some sort of briefcase man. I'm just
my
God. That doesn't seem necessarily applicable, but it's the first thing that came to mind. The front story is so good here. I know they say this every issue, but the way that Philip Kennedy Johnson is writing Superman,
Yes.
I love this. I love his characterization.
I love
here.
it.
really
I've been
do.
swimming in raw sewage, and I love it.
I really do, though. It's so inspiring the way that he writes Superman, the way that Superman is staying even despite everything that's going on in World, despite all of his circumstances with Mongol and everything else. Like, we were talking about this, actually, I think Tim Seeley mentioned this on our live show this week about the tendency to break down characters and just grind them down. And what Philip Kennedy Johnson has done here is he's put Superman in a situation where he's being ground down and he doesn't care because he's Superman. Like, it
He
does
only
not.
has his morals. He doesn't have his powers. And even in this issue, Midnighter, who's in this book, he's like, hey, don't worry. I figured out how to take out the engines that are keeping you from having your powers. He's like, you don't do that, please. That'll mess up my plan of getting beat up every day.
Well, that's what that was like. First off, I really agree. Philip Kennedy Johnson's killing this book. It's such a great exploration of like Superman and like who he is as a character, and regardless of powers or whatever, still the same kind of person, still the same beliefs. That makes me very happy, very cool. But it just the fact that like Midnighter's trying to help and doing the wrong thing is it's a little bit heartbreaking.
It's such a good book, though. Definitely pick it up. Next up, Deadly Class, number 51 from Image Comics, written by Rick Remender, art by Wes Craig. In this one, Marcus finally meets up with Mariah? I don't know how we're pronouncing that again. And it's not a very smooth reunion. Pete, I feel like you're a Marcus Saya shipper.
Yeah,
so what did you
I
think
am.
about this?
So this was a little tough, especially because he was like, this is who they're supposed to be with. And I was like, oh, come on. Like, don't tell us there's no other ships here. I mean, come on, man. But classic Remender, he'll rip your heart out. You know what I mean? Like, just give him enough pages and he'll make you twist in the breeze. But I can't say enough about the art and the action. This is an unbelievable book, and regardless of who you're shipping, you're still going to have a good time.
This felt like it could have been the last issue of the series. For a second, I thought it was.
Yeah, definitely.
And I wouldn't have minded that. I think this. I am a Maria Marcus shipper, so like I'm here for it.
Of course you are.
I'm curious to see how we get where we land next issue.
Absolutely. Black Hammer Reborn, number 9 from Dark Horse Comics, written by Jeff Lemire, art by Caitlin Yarsky. In this issue, we're getting some big revelations about what's going on With these parallel universes, as usual, really good characterization. Caitlin Yarsky's art is absolutely fantastic. What did you guys think of this one, though?
Yeah, I mean, this continues to be unbelievable. This kind of like, we're kind of getting to the point where we're getting characters, their powers back, and people are starting to be able to fight again. So this is very exciting. We're getting some forward movement in the story. Things are coming together. It continues to be just a powerhouse of not only amazing art, but great characters.
I agree. We get the sort of Thomas Wayne treatment at the end of the issue here in a cool way. Let's see what happens next.
DC versus Vampires, number 5 from DC Comics, written by James Tynion IV and Matthew Rosenberg. Art by Otto Schmidt and Simone DeMeo. In this issue, the Justice League is coming directly for Batman and Green Arrow because they think they're the vampires that have killed the Flash, but in fact, Green Lantern and Wonder Woman are vampires.
They've been tricking them.
They have. And meanwhile, the Suicide Squad is dealing with some vampires of their own. Specifically, there is a Joker vampire on the loose, which is probably bad news for everybody.
Oh, boy.
That guy's tricky.
Pete, you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, this is just really fun, unbelievable art, action-packed. Love the kind of like Batman thinking things through in this issue, the choices that are being made. I'm having a blast. At first when I heard this title, I rolled my eyes a little bit, but man, I'm so happy to be wrong and having a blast with this.
I want this to be just an ongoing series. I want this to just run and run and run because it is really good. And they're just the last panel. We haven't even talked about that. I'm like, this is bad. This is bad.
Bad news. Great book. Bad news, great book. Yep. Orphan and the Five Beasts, number 4 from Dark Horse Comics by James Stokoe. In this issue, our fighter is taking on a guy who cooks meat out of his own flesh. Don't worry, it grows back, so it's absolutely fine. This
totally normal. No notes.
This issue is so gross and so much fun, as every issue has been so far. I am just having a blast reading this book. What do you guys think?
I agree. It is both gross and fun, creepy, and all the kind of right and wrong ways. But yeah, it's ton of action, really great art. There's just a lot of great, cool samurai sword type stuff going on.
I love that Meat Pie Guy had so much potential and he blew it because he got too into his cooking. I know.
Well, he also blew it because, everybody's so addicted to his amazing meat pies that, if you throw a couple extra on the ground, they're going to forget what they're doing and go meat crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. Speaking of meat crazy, let's turn it over to Refrigerator Full of Heads, number 4, because refrigerators are a place where you would store meat. DC Comics, written by Rio Ewers, art by Tom Fowler. In this issue, a biker gang is attacking our main character, but don't worry, she's got a disembodied shark head to take them down and a magical axe. Meanwhile, we find out some big revelations about what's going on in the background, and it ties into the original series, Basket Full of Heads. Basket Full of Heads? Basket Full of Heads. Great series, much funnier than I expected.
Here's the thing. In this book, one of the characters uses the shark mouth almost like a wood chipper.
Right.
But is that shark mouth just going to be constantly biting? It's just going to be like nom, 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 nom?
Yep.
Yes.
There's no option.
Thank you for answering. Thank you for answering my question.
I mean, it just lets you show that, we get so wrapped up in technology and all this stuff when really all you need in life is a magical axe and a shark head and solve all your problems.
Yeah, that's true. I'd give up my cell phone.
What problems are you solving specifically, Pete?
I'm just saying, maybe some people say some things about you, whatever, and you wish you had a magical axe and a shark head. I'm just saying.
Would you like to give it all up and just be a head on a shelf or in a basket or a refrigerator?
Sure.
Takes the pressure off. You could just talk. We can still podcast.
Yeah, that's right. I kind of am just a talking
some
head.
Some days I feel like a head on this show.
I feel like Futurama, man.
Joy Operations, number 4 from Dark Horse Comics, written by Brian Michael Bendis, art by Stephen Byrne. Now, I don't believe we've talked about the previous 3 issues of this, but this did feel like, particularly because we've been a little down on Brian Michael Bendis' DC output, I thought it'd be interesting to check out something from another publisher. What did you think about this one? Was it more in line of what you expect from Brian Michael Bendis or not?
I don't know what's happening in this comic, really. So, sure. I don't know. I like, and I haven't read the earlier issues, but even this issue, I was like, there's just a lot of, the conversation feels even less impactful than normal with a lot of Bendis's work, where it does feel like it's chatty, but it's driving towards something. This feels just like people talking about something that I didn't have a strong connection to.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard when you're jumping in the middle, because you're kind of like the person who's late to the party, be like, hey, what are we all talking about? I'm not getting all the references. But I really did appreciate the samurai person who shows up and is, cutting through some stuff. So that was cool.
I agree. I thought, even though I didn't know what's going on, the writing felt a little sharper than a lot of the stuff that Brian Michael Bendis has been doing at DC. I also really like Stephen Byrne's art a lot, so I thought that was pretty good. So I'm curious to potentially go back and read a little bit more so I understand what's going on here, but this is definitely not a first issue to jump in on. Next up, Catwoman number 40 from DC Comics, written by Tini Howard, art by Nico Leon. Pete, I know you were a big fan of Catwoman in general, and you certainly like the first issue here as she, I believe, moved back to Gotham City and was fighting against some new crime families. That's what we pick up on here. How do you feel like this followed up on the previous issue?
I really enjoyed this issue. I thought this was the art's really unbelievable. Some great storytelling. I love the ending. It's like creepy and stylish and cool. So I feel like this is a cool Catwoman, and I'm enjoying it.
I agree. I think Catwoman being sort of out of the Batcat paradigm is great here, and the internal monologue. It struck me reading this, like, in so many Batman stories, we're not in his head anymore. We're just watching him or hearing other people's take on him. And it's great to just be with Catwoman as she goes through this story. And I like Catwoman fighting against crime families the best.
The Department of Truth, number 16 from Image Comics, written by James Tynion IV, art by Allison Sampson. This is another sort of times past issue as we jump back to the 70s and find out about some conspiracy theory stuff there. Justin, you're a big fan of this series.
Yeah,
what did you think of
It's
this?
just some trippy Haight-Ashbury action.
You're
I think
a
we're
big
in the
fan of
60s
drugs.
here. Yeah, I
What did you
love
think about
drugs. I mean, I like this series, and I feel like it's really good, and they're able to really stretch out a little bit here and do these sort of world fleshing out stories that are just sort of jumping around to different areas where it feels like there's a lot of opportunity to tell these conspiracy rich stories. And I like it.
I thought it was really tripped out, which was, kind of a different take for it. But yeah, it continues to kind of move things forward in this interesting way. The Department of Truth does a really impressive job with his comics where the art style pushes the conspiracy a little bit and kind of pulls you into this world. And this world is very tripped out, but still feels like a Department of Truth book. I thought the ending was very cool, so I'm excited to see on what that means for things going forward and, how this is going to wrap up because, man, it's been taking some big swings, which has been enjoyable to watch.
Let's wrap up here with our request from Indie77 on iTunes. Marvel Knights, Marvel Boy from Marvel, written by Grant Morrison, art by J.G. Jones with Ryan Kelly. This is the classic Marvel Boy series that introduced Novar back in the day. And I think a couple of other characters as well. I honestly don't know if Dr. Midas and the Exterminatrix were introduced beforehand. I certainly read about them afterwards. I'd never read this before. This is as wild as you would expect it to be from the team that's on board. But what did you guys think? How did this strike you?
I feel like this book occupies a Grant Morrison we don't get very often, which is midway between his like, here's a bunch of big ideas where like this spaceship is made of music, or this rainbow is the answer to the problem we've had all along, or whatever. And the other side where we just get like a great action battle storytelling, and this is right in the center of that in a great way, and featuring a character who is sort of a dick, who is he's not from Earth, and he's very much like, this place is stupid. And then over the course of it, he has this relationship with Exterminatrix, who's that's very cool. The art in this book is awesome, just so good by J.G. Jones, top to bottom. And this character, Novar, we see later dating Kate Bishop in West Coast Avengers, in sort of the recent run of West Coast Avengers. So, like, this character is still around in the Marvel Universe, and a character I think we should see more of.
Pete?
Yeah, I mean, it felt very 90s to me. It's kind of, evil corporations, space aliens, that kind of like.
But this was back before a lot of other people did that.
Sure. But it's hard to go
back when corporations were good. So sort of.
Where it's like, let's all have a Coke. Let's give the
Coke
world
a
a Coke.
smile. Yeah,
that sounds fun.
Yeah, I just think that. Maybe reading at the time would have been a little bit more. I would have been like a little bit more in awe of it. But looking back at it now, it's kind of just like the art style is kind of the time and era. Same with some of the characters, and the weird dad-daughter thing kind of creeped me the fuck out. But a lot of cool action. I didn't appreciate the all the trash talking about Earth, but I can appreciate what that person was coming from. Their perspective. You know what I mean?
Yeah, back off Earth, dude.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's where I live.
Yeah, I live here.
I don't know if you guys
I
like. I live here exactly.
Yeah.
Like, get off my junk.
Yeah.
The stuff that jumped out to me in particular, just to jump off of what you guys are saying, I thought Exterminatrix was a great character. I really liked reading her almost more than Novar. I also think it's almost, this isn't exactly correct, but like you were saying, Justin, it's almost one big action sequence the entire time. And there's just a propulsion there that happens throughout that's just very impressive to read.
That we don't get from a lot of Grant Morrison specifically, I feel like.
Yeah, but overall, good stuff, fun stuff. Thank you, Indy77, for recommending it. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and if you would like to support our podcast, patreon.com/Comic Book Club. Also, we do a live show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to Crowdcast on YouTube. Come hang out. We would love to chat with you about comic books, iTunes, Android, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice to subscribe, listen, and follow the show at Comic Book Live on Twitter, comicbooklive.com for this podcast, and many more. Until next time, we'll see you at the comic book shop.
Time to put my belt back on.
Oh, boy.
Come on.